Hello, this is the second part of our Musical Minds 2 dotted rhythms. So we are up to melodic dictation. So those of you who are students that have never done this before, what I would like for you to do is to write out 5 lines with 4 spaces in between to make a staff. And then the clef that you are comfortable in, whether that's treble or alto or bass clef, doesn't matter to me. And we're going to be in 4/4 meter. So you want to put, after the clef, you want to put 4/4 time signature. So I have 2 of them here. I don't have the bass clef on this page, but there's treble and there's alto. And there's a starting note of an A on the first measure, second measure, then you have an F sharp, and then you have a D. So if you could just pause this long enough to copy this down, we will do one melodic dictation, and I'll show you how to do it. So it starts out with a melody. And the easiest thing for you to do is to count or tap with me and get your rhythm put in. So the rhythm will be simple. And one of those measures is going to look like what you see on the bottom. The example on the bottom is going to be one of those measures. So you've already got one measure worked out. The others you will just do based on listening. So once you have the rhythm down, you can then fill in the notes, the pitches that go up and down or stay the same. So here's our starting note. Okay, that's A. You've already written it down. And here is the beat. 2, 3, 4. So you already know the last measure. It's already been given to you. So it's the other measures that we need to listen to. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got the last measure. You probably have the rhythm now. So let's check our rhythm. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, hold. That's the half note. And then half note here and half note here. So let's do now the pitch. See if the notes stay the same or if they change. 1, 2, ready, go. So we have A, 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 half note A. There's your F sharp A, and then this is an A half note, and then the pattern. All right. So melodic dictation is a good way to bring writing and listening together, and it strengthens your reading. So it's all good. Now, I'm going to play a little something just so we can get in the mood of what we're doing with dotted rhythms and D major. So let's do that.
Going down to Cairo, goodbye and a bye-bye. Going down to Cairo, goodbye, Liza Jane. Black them boots and I make them shine, goodbye and a bye-bye. Black them boots and I make them shine, goodbye, Liza Jane. Twinkle, twinkle, little star with ornamentation. Listen. Trill. Turn. Grace note. Practice playing a trill on E, a turn, and a grace note starting on F sharp. Movement. Shake your hand. Shake your foot. Shake your whole body. Twist to the right. Twist to the left. Turn in place. Choose your own movement for grace notes. It can be a snap, a blink, or a twitch. Listen to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with ornamentation and shake on the trill. Twist or turn on the turn. And use your own creative movement for the grace notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Improvise your own variation of Twinkle using trills, turns, and grace notes. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star variation using rhythm. Stretch slow. Play on open D. Stretch slow. Runner. Play runner on D. Movement. Stretch step. Sliding. There are also Mississippi running steps and one-and running steps. Move to twinkle. Improvise your own variation on Twinkle using rhythm and added notes. Twinkle with articulation. Listen. Staccato. Legato. Marcato. Accent. Pizzicato. Pedal. Move in a jerky bit way. Move smoothly, swing or sway. Strike the air with your hand. Drop heavily as you walk. Use articulation movements as you listen to Twinkle.
So The articulation segment involves a lot of movement, which is something that I can't do on the video. But that was part of the CD that, or from the CD from the book, and gives you an idea of what's there. The next segment in this puts into context some of the things we've been working on. We've been focusing on D major. We've been focusing on dotted rhythms. We have looked at some expressive articulation. So one of the things that we have coming up is the sneeze, which is a poem by, let's see, who is it? Maxine Kumin. And it is a good example of articulation in poetry. So here's something that we've learned some articulation terms. Here's how we may hear it in language. So that is here.
The Sneeze by Maxine Kumin, example of articulation in poetry. There's a sort of tickle, the size of a nickel, a bit like a prickle of a sweet sour pickle. Is a quivery shiver, the shape of a sliver, like eels in a river, a kind of wiggle that starts as a jiggle and joggles its way to a tease, which I cannot suppress any longer, I guess, so pardon me, please, while I sneeze.
So the articulation that we have in here, whether it's used in sounds like assonance or alliteration, where they're repeated sounds, and in the poetry, or hesitations for commas, or the use of harsh words or harsh, more percussive sounds in language to exemplify something, can be drawn a picture of here. So you can kind of visualize what you've just heard. So I go into D major this way in putting it in context. This is from a CD that my Irish band years ago put together. And this is a tune called St. Anne's Reel. And it's in D major. And I would like for the children to listen to it and see if they hear any patterns that are familiar to them. They may be dotted rhythms, so they might be rhythmic patterns. They may be melodic patterns. You may hear scalar patterns that are going up or down steps. You may hear some of the melodic patterns that we have memorized from Musical Minds 1, like do, so, do, or our triad patterns, do, mi, so. So this is something that I would like the children to listen to and see if they hear anything that they recognize. And that's track 21. Did you recognize anything in there? There's a D major triad that is played in. So we have that do so there, scalar, mi re do. So, and then we are in D major there. Then we have a part that's in the dominant. So we've got another D major chord there. And so we're playing around those two keys. And if we reduced it down to just chords, we could do a simplified version of that and play D, A7, if we wanted to make it a little more interesting, we could add a 4 chord. And 4 chords, also called subdominant chords, are built on the 4th scale degree. So if we're in D major, and tonic is our 1, D, 5 is our dominant A, G would be our subdominant chord, our 4 chord. And so on your instrument, just find D, A's, and G's. And you've got the 4 most important harmony notes in that key. So you can harmonize just about anything with those 3 chords. So let's play open D, or play a D on the piano. Then let's do G note. Then back to D. And then down to A and D. If you don't have your instrument handy, you can sing it. D, G, D, A, D. We can make, and this is something that I get into in this chapter, we could make this a little bit more interesting and use a 2 chord, which is a lot like a 4 chord, but it's minor. We've not been really doing much with minor. So it has a different kind of sound to it. Instead of this, I would have this kind of sound. Or, let's see, I could spell it different ways, but it's, this is the 4 chord, this is the 2 chord, which is a minor sound. So in the tune that we just listened to from the Irish band, St. Anne's Reel, we have 1, 4, and 5 chords. We don't have an example of a 2 in there, but we could insert 1 in whenever there's a 4 chord and make it sound just a little different. And that's something you can try when you're listening to things. If you were singing or playing the bottom line, instead of going D to G, we'd go D to E. So play that. Start with your D, and now go to E. Okay, and back to D. So just training your ear a little bit. Now, the very last part of this book puts some of this into a timeline. So there are different periods in music. There's a time that was from a long time ago, and then there are times that are more recent. So we have names for those time periods. And the one long, long time ago is before music was even written down. We don't have examples of that. Music was around long before we knew how to write it. So it was pre-manuscript time. And then we have some remnants of music that was from the early Christian period. So that would be around the 600s, the 800s, the time of Charlemagne. If you've done some history, when Christianity was being spread in Europe, that was a time where we had monks that were singing, and we had a lot of sacred music. We had secular, but we don't know anything about that. We just know some of the music that was back from the church. And then later, we had clearly, by the medieval period, we had sacred music and what we call secular music, party music. So the secular music, or the sacred music, was done in church. And that's like the masses. And I, in a previous video, had an example from that period, medieval period, that's around the Dark Ages, and then the bubonic plague in the 1300s, and that whole period of time. And then you had secular music. That was the party music, and that was usually done on instruments and not sung as much. Sometimes it would be sung, but it didn't have to be sung. And then we had a period of time called the Renaissance. And in the Renaissance, we had lots of traveling artists and people who did music in conjunction with maybe theater or a play, traveling groups that would perform. And things were done in the courts, not just at church or in a party, but there was court music. So the music that I have for this period is called Romantic, and it's much later than any of that. It's from the 1800s, and it's an example of music that is called chamber music, where people play on a part by themselves, and you can have as much as 12 people on different parts, or you can just have a duet with 2 people. And so in this case, there are 5 people. It's a piano quintet by Schubert. And the example of this is not just the style, but the theme and variations. We were looking at variations on Twinkle with articulation and ornamentation and trills and doing different things with rhythm. We were varying the melody in many ways. Well, this is what this is an example of with Franz Schubert's Trout quintet, is that there is a theme, and then he has a set of variations. And I don't have all of the variations that I'm going to play for you today, but I do have the theme, and I have one of the variations. I may have 2 of them. We'll see. But that's what I'm ending with today for this period. So that is track 22.
Excerpt from the piano quintet The Trout, Theme and Variations by Schubert. The melody in Schubert's piano quintet is taken from one of his songs or lieder. The score calls for 5 instruments: violin, viola, cello, double bass, and piano. Listen for the theme in the variations. Schubert varies the theme by changing the instrument playing the melody and adding notes to the other parts. Most of these added notes are broken chords, triads, and scales and triplet rhythms.
Can you figure out who has the melody now? It's the piano. All the strings are accompanying. The piano holding the melody, is it? Can you tell which instruments are doing it? The cello and the bass are supporting, but it's the viola part that's carrying the melody. So that's an example of a theme and variations. And the variations involve articulation changes, instrumentation changes. Sometimes the piano has the melody, sometimes the viola, sometimes the violin. Somebody else may share it with someone. It has dynamic changes, has changes in ornamentation. We heard trills, we heard grace notes, we had turns in there. And rhythmic, we've got triplets that are added, or 16th notes, or just a bass line in some parts. So the way a composer like Schubert varies something, employs all the things that we worked on in Twinkle. So that ends this lesson from Musical Minds 2, Dotted Rhythms in D major. Thank you.